are these people?
Mondoweiss. So this is another one. I wanted to talk about the New York Times, and we hate the New York Times here, obviously, but I don't think that people quite realize just the level of Zionist trash that the New York Times is, and the reason why they are so biased. Mondoweiss did an incredible deep dive recently into the leadership of the New York Times, pointing out
New York Times. Oh, sorry.
Well, that's what Christina P. used to call them a long time ago, by the way. The New York Times has helped to enable and sustain Israel's ongoing genocide, or at least whitewash it in the public press. A new dossier reveals the close ties of 20 top editors, executives, and journalists at the Times who've covered Gaza and their connection to Israel and Zionism, and whitewashed it the entire time. All right? Sons serving in the IOF, ties to Zionist lobbying groups or think tanks, living in a stolen house or has lived in a stolen house in Israel themselves, or 3 of them who actually served in the IOF themselves. We are putting the New York Times on notice. Since the Zionist genocide in Gaza began over 20 months ago, the paper of record has run cover for Israel's war crimes. We've witnessed the Zionist entity drop 2,000-pound bombs on displaced Palestinians forced to survive in tents, massacre starving Palestinians at aid sites, arrest and torture Palestinians accused of fighting back or administering care, destroy Gaza's entire healthcare system, obliterate almost every one of its schools and universities, damage over 90% of its residential buildings, and block food and supplies from entering the besieged strip, despite what the fuck they decide to claim on wherever yesterday. But the New York Times journalists have chosen to ignore, whitewash, distort, or justify each one of these crimes, which we've brought a lot of here. As much as any weapons manufacturer, the New York Times is a part of the machinery of war, producing, in the realm of public opinion, the impunity that enables and sustains Israel's ongoing genocide. When we first occupied the lobby of the New York Times in November of 2023, we called out the Times' refusal to historicize the Al-Aqsa flood within the context of Israel's over 7-decade-long occupation of Palestine and its choice to frame the Israeli military's bombardment of Gaza as a targeted war against Hamas. We demanded that the Times tell the truth. We printed our own paper, The New York War Crimes, which contained the names of Palestinian martyrs recorded at the time. It took us over an hour just to read the names of martyrs under the age of 1. We called on our audiences to boycott the Times, to divest their time, trust, and attention from the paper, and to unsubscribe from its quote-unquote news, games, and recipes. That includes Wordle. Fuck Wordle.
Mm-hmm.
We are not the
and
first.
The wire cutter.
Yep. We are not the first to point out the New York Times commitment to Zionism. The dossier we released this month was built on the investigative work of outlets and organizations including the Electronic Intifada, Mondoweiss, The Intercept, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and Palestinian writers who've exposed this fraudulence of the paper of record for decades. Since October 7th, 2023, such critiques have accrued both new audiences and new urgency. Data tracking word choices across the newsroom, as well as leaks of the Times' editorial directives, evince anti-Palestinian bias. Times headline corrections have been a favorite discursive tool of the Palestine Solidarity movement. Alan McLeod and Asal Rod fixed headlines almost daily to reveal the revisionism, to set the record straight, to tell the truth. Our dossier adds to this body of knowledge. It exposes 20 high-ranking editors, executives, and journalists who cover the war on Gaza and have ties to the Zionist state, further undermining the Times' unearned prestige. Natan Odenheimer served in the Maglan Special Forces Commando Unit of the Israeli Occupation Forces. Now that he's a Jerusalem correspondent for the Times, he writes about and embeds with his former brothers in arms. You mean murderers in arms. How can we ever expect someone to report on the occupation correctly when he wore the occupier's uniform for 4 years? Isabel Kirshner is the mother of 2 former IOF soldiers and the wife of another. After his tour, Kirshner's husband went on to direct an Israeli think tank's program on information strategy, a department tasked with shaping a positive image of Israel in the media. You mean brainwashing and propaganda. We don't have to ask how this...
Daniela Weiss would want him to do.
We don't ask how this relationship...
You have to brainwash people.
Yes, she belongs in prison.
Fucking worse than that.
All right. We don't have to ask how this relationship shapes her coverage. Kirshner has cited her husband's think tank over 100 times since she started writing for the Times in 2007. Our dossier, which lays bare the material connections and historical allegiances of editors, executives, and influential writers to Zionism, clearly demonstrates that the Times is compromised. The entire institution is systematically organized to protect Israel from international accountability. It's interesting that Barry Weiss left there because it seems tailor-made for her now. So maybe she left because she accomplished...
That's the Assad toady, right?
Right. Maybe she left because she accomplished her goal of leaving it for that level of Zionism and starting her own independent, quote-unquote, Zionist-funded outlet that's VC-funded and housed on Substack called the Free Press, which is fucking hilarious and the biggest troll ever. While they lie about beheaded babies and rapes on October 7th. Still, the Times support...
Free Palestine.
You better. The Times support of Zionism and the settler states' colonial mission across the region is deeply embedded in the paper's history. A.M. Rosenthal, head of the Times newsroom for nearly 2 decades, was praised at his funeral for showing that it was possible to love Israel every bit as much as to love our own country. You mean to be a traitor to your own country? Max Frankel, executive editor of the Times for over 10 years, admitted that he wrote from a pro-Israel perspective and said he was expected to stand up for Israel, whether they're right or wrong. Fuck Israel.
So how is that? Okay.
That's cheerleading. That's not journalism.
What?
The Times has condemned our research as a vile campaign in the press, but refuses to accept that Israel's killing of over 200 Palestinian journalists has been targeted. We regret ever calling the martyr Hossam Shabbat the colleague of elite journalists who write their propaganda from stolen homes in occupied Jerusalem.
Jesus Christ.
Those who serve in the IOF, who get paid by the Israel lobby to spew Hasbara, are not the colleagues of Palestine's bravest. They are their enemies. The paper's response to our dossier deploys the same tortured logic present in its coverage. How can our research be both public knowledge and inaccurate? We know why the Times has been silent on the killing of media workers. Palestinian journalists expose the same truth the paper seeks to obscure. They're constantly charged with being biased and unable to report objectively because they're Palestinian. Their identity is the ultimate accusation. But in the Times, fairness evades the Palestinians, and their struggle to live free is unrighteous, unjust, and worthy of condemnation, while Israel can do whatever they want to do to stop them from that struggle.
They're freedom fighters,
the New York Times doesn't recognize Palestine. An editor of the Times once told the Palestinian intellectual Ibrahim Abu Lughod. Abu Lughod responded, well, Palestine doesn't recognize the New York Times either. His refusal to acknowledge the Times 37 years ago is an invitation to undercut its prestige. Everyone should heed his call and boycott, divest, and unsubscribe from the paper of record. And I don't know too many people here who do. If you do, cancel that shit.
Mhm.
To imagine a free Palestine within our lifetimes, it helps to imagine a world without the New York fucking Times. Fuck the New York Times. And fuck Israel. Please support the media you want to see. We certainly don't get monetized by YouTube for this. Our channel, INN, is not monetized. My other channel, youtube.com/@indie@INN, is monetized. You could leave a super chat there, but please don't. Do it in one of these other places if you can. Cash App, $, Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. IndieNewsNow.com is our website that has a Keep the Media Free section where you can do that. And then at the Substacks at INNnewsletter.com and at IndieMediaToday.com, where we are, again, live right now. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. I'll see you next week. I love you all. And have a good one, everyone.
See you in a bit, fam.
Ciao, baby.
We are out of here.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want?